Hi everyone, this is Amanda Ellis of amandaellis.co.uk, Facebook page Angelic Celestial Colours, and YouTube channel Amanda Ellis 11. Making this at the end of August 2017, and it's something that I've been asked to do by some of you and also by Spirit. So it concerns a response, a loving response to some of the questions, some of the confusion that has been raised amongst people that enjoy working with angels, crystals, oracle cards, astrology, mediumship, who are on their ascension path, that came in via the recent Doreen Virtue video. And Doreen made a video a week or so ago, second one she's made really, explaining her decision to move back to a more formal religious structure of the church and to follow a path very much dedicated to Christ. And I firstly want to say that I would never knock that. I would never view her as wrong in doing that. I have great respect for her, and whoever you are, even if you have a large following as she has, you are your own person, you're on your own path, and we all have to make our own decisions. And I think it takes quite a lot of bravery actually to change course in the way that she has, because it is a change of course. And I suspect that some of the language that is being used by her as well has to, by nature, be slightly political, in that obviously she has a business behind her, students behind her, followers behind her, that she doesn't want to alienate, but equally she has to be truthful with what she now feels is in alignment with her truth. I feel one of the reasons why I work with Archangel Metatron, those of you that don't know, I particularly channel his energy, increasingly all the archangels really, and also I've got a very close relationship myself to Christ. And I feel as though they've all sort of been ganging up a bit with me, saying, come on, you've got to say something, you need to speak out, not to correct anything, not to dismiss what Doreen has said, not to attack her, not to say that she is wrong, because she isn't. There is no wrong, because we all are on our own paths, as I've said before, but just to try and give a different perspective and to clear up maybe some of the confusion. And I know this is out there in the collective, not just because of emails that have come into me over the last week, but also comments that have been maybe left on YouTube. And one in particular struck me. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but a very lovely message that came in from a lady who hadn't seen my Facebook post, I don't think, where I was saying I was going to do this video a couple of days ago. And she said that I had come into her dream, basically, you know, at night. And the dream was very much about this person had fear over using the oracle cards going forward, and I was there sort of as a figure of reassurance to say it's okay, you can still go ahead and do that, and to try to help her understand that we're all working for the same energy, which is love. And when I saw that, it was like further confirmation, which is like, no, come on, you need to say something. So that's what this video is about. I have beside me here a pile of oracle cards and a pile of books, all of which are Doreen's, none of which I'm going to be throwing away. They're all beautiful. I was never a student of hers. I've never actually been a student of any angel school or any angel teacher. I was going to say I'm self-taught, but of course I'm not self-taught. I'm really taught via the angels that I work with. They teach me as I go along. But I've got her books here. There's a few in particular that I've loved over the years and still dip into. One here, The Light Worker's Way, is a great book. I was about to say it's a great Bible. Sorry, that's my sense of humour. but it's a great book to dip into that covers so much of what the new age, as she calls it, is about. I hate that term, by the way, but we'll come back to that. I hate to be called new age, because basically we're spiritual people. We don't have to be tagged as something which is, okay, Metatron saying talk about it. I will just mention it briefly. New age is such a ridiculous tag to put on people who believe and who work with things that are as ancient as what we work with. So for myself, I work with the energies particularly of colour and of crystals. Colour was used in all of the ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt, Atlantis, to heal, you know, actually in a much more advanced way than we presently do. Crystals, the same thing. None of this is new. The angels are hardly new. The archangels are hardly new. None of this is new. What is new is the belief that we don't have to have an intermediary, i.e. a church or a minister, to connect us to the divine. That we have a number of tools, be they crystals, colours, archangels, symbols, to help us to connect to the divine, so that we can have a personal relationship with God, source, whatever you want to call it. So sorry, that was a bit of a detour, but I felt it was important to say. So we're spiritual people. I've also got her book Angel Medicine, which is a really good one as well. I've got the Archangels and Ascended Masters. I've got her book on indigo children. You know, there's a lot of good material that she has produced over the years. I've also got 7 decks here, all belonging to her, ranging from the Ascended Masters deck, which I know is a bit controversial at the moment, to her most recent deck, which is the Loving Words from Jesus, to more or less everything in between. I've also got the tarot cards that she did with Radley Valentine. They're all good, you know, she's a good teacher, she's been a good leader, and I'm sure she'll continue to be so. But I am going to address some of the points that were made in that video. To do that, Metatron is saying, and Christ are saying, because I work with them both and they feel very much like a brotherly energy to me, they're both around me a lot of the time, to talk about where I've come from. Because that's what she did. To explain her decisions now, she had to go back and explain where she came from. And so therefore, if we're going to have an alternative view, then maybe it's important for you to understand where I have come from. And where I have basically come from is the Anglican Church. I live in England, in the UK. We have a Church of England, which broke off from the Catholic Church during the reign of Henry VIII. Those of you that watched my last video know that Henry VIII came up as an energy in the cottage that I was in a week ago, a few days ago actually, 500-year-old cottage. But yeah, we broke away from the Catholic Church. We created the Church of England. It's quite a formal organisation. It's got a lot of structure to it. And I was quite happy within it, certainly for the first 20 years of my life. As a child, I went to Sunday school every Sunday. My father was actually the Sunday school leader, so I was extraordinarily proud of him when he did that. We used to sing and make art and do all sorts of creative things and listen to stories of the Bible. I was also a member of the choir, the Young People's Choir. I loved that. And that carried on for a good few years actually. I think the highlight was singing Handel's Messiah in York Minster, and that was probably in my early 20s. And I'm making myself out to seem like a great singer, and I'm really not, but I just enjoyed being part of a choir and the vibration of music, the vibration of sound, to connect you to the divine and also connect you to joy, because as a child, singing is a real source of joy. It was to me, still is actually. So yes, we went to church every Sunday, and over the course of the 20 years when I guess I was more under my parents' influence, we experimented with churches. We went to high churches where there is lots of bells and whistles and incense and decoration and beauty. Quite enjoyed that. Went to low church where there is virtually nothing, very minimal, very stripped back, and also went to a number of evangelical churches as well. Certainly my mother in particular was quite into the evangelical movement. Billy Graham, for example, featured at some point in my childhood. I was born with hips which were slightly out of alignment. I was completely bow-legged as a little girl, and my mother took me to many leg specialists, and they couldn't do much for me. So that's why we went down the evangelical route, and I had hands-on healing. My mother swears to this day that it was that reason and that reason alone, which was one of the reasons why I now have nice straight legs. I've got nothing wrong with my posture. And there's a little confirmation just coming in on my phone that the healing came through Christ. What else did I want to say about my upbringing and my church? My father also at one point was devoutly Christian and attempted to become a minister. You know, he applied to wherever you apply to, you know, to start the formal training to become a vicar. And he was actually rejected. He was turned down for that. And I remember the day that it happened. It was like a big cloud came over our little cottage, and you know, he was devastated to have been rejected. Roll forward now, my father's in his 70s, and he doesn't. I think he's an agnostic, which is when you don't really know what you believe anymore. So he's turned away a little bit. My mother is still a practicing Christian and goes to church every single Sunday and sings in the choir and gets a lot of pleasure from it, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, for me, in my 20s and in my 30s in particular, I started to become increasingly uncomfortable with some of the rigid structure that I was coming up against with regard to the church. And in particular, and I have talked about this in other videos, there was one point in particular of the Eucharist where you have to kneel and you have to say, I am not worthy so much as to gather up the crumbs under your table, O Lord. And it's about being a miserable sinner and not being worthy really to even look Christ in the eye. And it didn't sit well with me because it wasn't the Christ that I knew. The Christ that I knew was with me and was joyful and didn't view me as a miserable sinner who wasn't worthy to be before him. And so I stopped saying that part of the Eucharist. I just used to go quiet. And then there were many other instances. One of them was the 7/7 bombing in London when the tube was attacked, a terror attack on the tube. Terrible, terrible day. I think it might have been on a Friday or a Saturday. I can't really remember. But I remember going to church a few days later, devastated like everybody was, and needing some nourishment, needing some spiritual assistance, needing some higher perspective on why that had happened. And nothing was mentioned. Instead, what we got was the vicar opening up a Bible, very much like the one I've got here. And he just opened it at the Old Testament, and we had a passage read out, which was all about hell and damnation. And if anything, it depressed me, it didn't uplift me. And none of my questions were answered. And I looked around and I thought, is this what people really need? Is this giving people what they need? Now, I know that was only one day and one church service, but, you know, over the years, I've been many, many times. And I increasingly found a dry desert where really there should have been an oasis of comfort, of knowledge. From time to time, I still go back to church because I appreciate that it has great beauty. There is beauty within many aspects of service, particularly the music, particularly the incense, which I still love. Particularly also the kinship that you can get if you're with the right church and the right organisation. But increasingly I knew that my tribe didn't belong within that building. They weren't there within that building. And actually what started to happen was the more that I opened up to my spiritual path, my own personal connection with the divine, I started to feel more and more alienated, and more as though I couldn't even answer people when they said to me, what do you do? What do you believe? Certainly things like reincarnation, which I do believe, were a no-no. When I started along the path of becoming a healer, that was something that was very much frowned upon and questioned, because who was I to offer healing? Only Christ can do that. God can do that via a minister. You can't do that. My beautiful colour bottles, the readings that I used to do, which were never about fortune telling, they were always about assisting people with whatever path they were on at that time, were frowned upon and banned from, you know, the church hall. The Christian school that my children go to wouldn't accept me with the beliefs that I had when I again tried to take a stand and have a stall, you know, at the sort of fair that they do. And I wasn't surprised by any of this. I knew that it was going to happen. I had people to my face, and also often, even now on YouTube, saying that they were going to pray for my soul, that I was a lost cause, that I was doing the devil's work. And the more that I felt into that, the more there was a stage of anger, I have to be honest, where I thought, who are you to say to me, you know, what my soul is doing? You don't know me. You don't know my soul. I think I know my soul better, and I know that my soul is coming from love and wanting to be of service and coming from the right place. But the anger soon left, and then it just became disappointment. And so I had to take a break away from, not Christ, he never left me, but certainly from the church and from formal structure, from somebody standing up and telling me what to believe and putting various things into boxes. It was no longer in alignment with my truth. And the most important thing in all of this is that over the years that I've been following the path that I'm on now, which I know is one for life, which embraces really all faiths, all beliefs, would listen to any being if they are of the right vibration and are of love and light, knowing completely that Christ is inclusive and works with all of them as well. I left the church, but I didn't leave Christ, okay? He's still an important part of my life. And I don't talk about it much because as soon as you start to talk about it, you open yourself up to misunderstanding. So that's what this video is about, to try to dispel some of the misunderstanding. Let's go up to present day. And let's go back to Doreen and some of the questions that have been raised for some of you by things that she has alluded to or said openly on her recent video. And I'm going to look at some notes that I've actually written down here. Okay, let's just address the first thing, which is the oracle cards. Okay, the oracle cards. Oracle cards are, like anything else, simply a tool. They are a tool to help you connect with higher guidance. Those of you that have watched me for quite some time will have seen that I always, when I'm doing a session, I always shuffle the cards. But the most important thing that I do is I will usually always ask Archangel Metatron to give me the cards that I need. Ooh, that one's just fallen out. Let's see what that one was. Ooh, it's gone right under my desk. Hold on. The card of freedom. You see that? It's quite an interesting one to have fallen out. Because in a way, that's what I'm trying to say, that we're all free to believe whatever we want to believe. And we're all basically working for the same thing, which is light and love. But yeah, when you work with oracle cards, the most important thing is it shouldn't ever be about fortune telling. It's never about, you know, am I going to meet the man and with the red sports car and, you know, how, I don't know, what, well, you know the questions, because we're all human and we've all probably wanted to know the answer, you know. Is this the right job? Is this the right person? Is this the right place for me to live? It's almost like they're closed questions. We're wanting a yes/no response. And when you're working with oracle cards, the first thing is you should always ask somebody to work through them, whether that be Christ, whether that be Metatron, whether that be Archangel Michael, whoever it is. I've always done that. But equally, they should be about just showing you a broader picture of whatever the situation is. Okay, I'm just going to pull one more that goes with that freedom card. Let's see what we get. We get Melchizedek, spiritual law of attraction. Melchizedek, you see, Melchizedek is such an ancient energy. And I can't remember whether Melchizedek is actually mentioned in the Bible or not. You could maybe let me know that. But that card in itself, spiritual law of attraction, is quite interesting, talking about oracle cards, because if you're working with oracle cards and you're working from a low vibration, okay, a low vibration, one of need, one of desperation, one of vengeance, maybe, you know, maybe you've been wronged by a partner and you're wanting to use the cards to sort of see what's going on, you know, and you're shuffling them with that sort of energy. Well, you are going to attract back to you the answers which will be of a lower vibration. Is this making sense? So if you're shuffling them with an open heart, with purity of thought, asking for the highest guidance available to you at that time, with no strings attached to what that answer may be, having called in a being to work through them as they would work through any other tool, then you get a more accurate answer. And I feel that's what Melchizedek is saying here, okay? So remember that when you're working with them. I do agree with what Doreen said in that fortune telling, there's a difference between being psychic and being spiritual, okay? Those of us on an ascension path are on a spiritual path. Yes, you may gather some psychic skills along that path, be they clairvoyance, clairaudience, telepathy, you know, whatever it is, I don't know. But you're not on the path for the pursuit of them alone, you know, to be the best clairvoyant in the world, to be the person that can see auras the best. That's all ego, okay? You can get those skills, but the ascension path and the spiritual path is about how may I serve, and what is the highest guidance available to me at any one time? What is the highest level of support that I can get at this point in time, okay? So let's just pause for one moment. Okay, it's always good to pause. Just had a little break and thought about what else I want to say in this video. Couple of things just before I move on to another subject. When I talked about the new age, Metatron is also wanting me to bring in the fact of Aboriginal beliefs, okay? Those that link into a more shamanic path, you know, that honour the sun, that honour the elements, that honour tribal wisdom that's been passed down from millennia, you know. Again, none of that is new, you know, and again, that would be something that elements within some parts of the church would not appreciate, would not understand, would think was not in alignment with the only one way. And we're going to come back to talk about that, the only way, in a moment. So I wanted to bring the shamanic aspect into it as well, as being something that is an equally valid path to God, source, enlightenment, ascension. I also wanted to, I actually find this whole discussion around oracle cards quite interesting, and tarot in particular, because again, those of you that have followed me a couple of years know that 2 years ago now, I started to develop an Archangel Oracle deck, an Archangel Metatron Oracle deck, and we're at August 2017. The project is completed. I actually have a publisher. It's been me that has caused the delay in them coming out, although Metatron's smiling and laughing at me, saying there was always going to be a divine timing that these cards were going to arrive. Because I know some of you have been really impatient with me, like, where the hell are these cards? You were talking about them a year ago and they're still not here. I can't explain it to you other than there was a delay. There has been a block in getting the final part of it done for publication. And I now see that these Metatron cards, when they come out, are going to be presented in a new way, along the lines of what I was just talking about a few moments ago. You know, how important it is to call in the right energy when you're working with them with the right vibration, working with them not in a fortune-telling environment or aspect, working with them at deep soul level to really provide you with a very valuable tool. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to also say, I'm not going to quote exactly where it was said on Doreen's video, but there is definitely one part where she talks about her understanding now is that angels can deliver us messages, okay? Because that's what the Bible tells, that angels can deliver us messages, angels can talk to us in that way, but we are not supposed to be talking to angels ourselves or getting them to convey messages to the divine, because really we should be going direct to God or through Jesus only. And that is an aspect which I do fundamentally not agree with, okay? My understanding has always been that archangels, angels, they are a bridge that help us to get a closer relationship with God. They are not there to create a block, okay? They are a bridge that enables us to be able to access God and Source, because I know very, very few people in this world who have a direct relationship with God, okay, with Source. It's very difficult to reach a high enough vibration in day-to-day life with everything that everyone has going on around them, even when you're sitting in church, to get that direct connection to God, okay? Which is why ministers have devoted their lives to trying to do it. You know, the new age, again, hate that term, but is about the archangels coming in as a bridge to help us access the highest level of light, support and guidance that we can, and ultimately that is Source. So they're not a block, they are a bridge, okay? It's really, really important point. And it's also really important that you know that you can talk to your angels, you can talk to your archangels, you can pass messages on to them to deliver to God, okay? That is what they do, that is what they have always done, and that is what they will always continue to do. There are also many archangels that are not mentioned within the Bible that are real and alive and with you right now. Metatron himself does not feature in the New Testament. You won't see a reference to Metatron. Some people talk about, there's a passage in Revelations where it talks about rainbow-coloured light, could be Metatron, but you know, he's in the book of Enoch. You know, there are many different scriptures are written around the same time as the Gospels that are not within the New Testament, okay? And increasingly we are led to believe that actually contradicts some of the things that are in there anyway, which is why you can't look at a historical book and think it's the whole story. It's part of the story, it's a very valuable part of the story, but it's not the whole story. When Jesus said, when he ascended after his death, he said, I will be with you always. What he didn't mean by that, I don't believe, is that I will always be with you via this book and only this book. This book is a way for many people to be able to access him, to be able to reach him, but it's not the only way. He didn't leave us. And 2,000 years ago, what was said was valid. Do you really think that now, 2,000 years later, there wouldn't be a slight change to what he may say? Of course there would. The world has changed, and God and Christ are creative energies because they are behind creation of the universe, and creation never stops. It never stands still. It's never about, okay, I've created that, so that's the way it's always going to be forever and ever and ever, amen. Creation is an evolving thing. You know, if you look at the way the universe develops, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly moving. So he's saying here very strongly, and I've written down these words, I am not just the historical Jesus. I am alive today with something to say today. And at this moment, I'm going to just bring in the spray that I made, which is called Christ Light Cosmic Love, okay? And I'm going to spray this, and let's just see. I'd like you to feel the energy more than anything. See if there's any words that come through. Coral, Christ Light. I am the beginning, I am the end, I am everything in between, and every end just brings a new beginning. With me are many ascended masters, beings of light, enlightened ones, who all serve the same purpose, which is that to bring heaven to earth. And to bring comfort to earth. One of the other things I'd like to pick up on is mediumship. And mediumship is something that is misunderstood often by the church. And again, it's exactly the same principle as working with something like oracle cards. If you are using mediumship, and you go and see a medium maybe, and you're viewing it, I want to say in a shallow way, okay? In a way just to, I don't know, provide you with answers to questions that maybe you really need to work out yourself, then it's not wrong, but it's not really where a medium's skills are best used. A medium effectively works to bring enormous comfort to those who are in great pain, having lost somebody they love. Sometimes the pain is so great that that person doesn't even want to carry on living. And so therefore, to go and see someone who is genuine, who has genuine contact with the other side of the veil, and who is able to give some form of proof that that soul is alive and well, as they of course are. And that makes the person who is still earthbound feel as though they can carry on a little bit longer, keep going. How can that be wrong? Really think about that. How can that be wrong? It comes back to the whole thing about how can I serve? If you're serving from the right place, you're serving from a place of love, of truth, then it cannot be wrong, nor can any other energy that you're working with, if that energy is about love, about light, and about helping and supporting others. The biggest gripe that I have nowadays with traditional church is the belief, which is very clearly stated, which is there is only one way towards enlightenment. Heaven. We're bandying around words. They're all the same thing. Enlightenment, heaven, ascension. There's only one way to reach that state of being back close to God, source, love. and that is through Christ. And I do not believe that. I believe that Christ offers a beautiful way to do that. And those that choose to do that, there's nothing wrong with it. But there are other routes. There are other routes, there are other ways, and it's all about finding the right fit for yourself. In my house, there are many rooms. Those were Christ's words. And what he meant by that was it didn't matter what belief you have, what faith you have, what creed you have. In my house, there are many rooms, means there are many ways to get close to that union with God. So many of the rules and regulations and blocks are man-made. They did not come from Christ. Okay, I think it'd be a nice thing now just to end with one of Doreen's cards. Let's end with one of the loving words from Jesus cards that she has created and see what comes through. This one. Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. There is nothing there within that quote, within that passage, which says, and you have to work in a particular way. You have to believe in a certain way. What it says to me is that you are asked to shine. You are asked to shine your light, however you choose to shine it. And by doing that, you cannot not align with the ultimate creator and source, which is God. I'll take one more, just because they're very beautiful. One more card. This one. All things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believing you shall receive. It's a nice picture above all else, actually, as well as the passage. And it just shows Christ with a child there. And it's this thing about we make things so much more complicated than they need to be. Man, adult man, makes things more complicated than it needs to be. The child knows just that purity and that light. And a child is born and isn't affiliated to anything, any particular religion. And the journey of the soul in this lifetime is to almost become childlike again, to be full of that wonder, of exploration, of asking questions. You know, those of you that are parents, do you remember that phase that young children go through where they just keep asking why? Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? Why has the dog got 4 legs? Why? And those why questions drive you mad. But actually, it's what the spiritual path is all about. It's about questioning. It's about asking why. So don't ever stop asking that. And I think really that card, coupled with the freedom card that we got earlier, really answers a lot of questions, which is the spiritual path is about being free to explore, but don't put yourself in a box. Don't let man put you in a box. Don't let somebody else tell you what is right or what is wrong. Follow your own path. Be your own guru. That is the path that we're all now on. I hope that's cleared up some questions, and I send you all much love. Namaste, everyone.